To the latest in our series of special reports on how people with learning disabilities are being locked up indefinitely here in the UK. Tonight, the really harrowing story of 56-year-old Bryan McCarry, who spent his entire adult life under lock and key. His sister, who got in touch with ITV News after seeing our previous reports on the issue, says her brother is being treated like some sort of prisoner, and she claims he suffered dozens of incidents of abuse at the hospital where he has been left to languish. All that despite apparently being cleared to return to society decades ago. Our correspondent Peter Smith has been investigating.
Bryan McCarry in the arms of his mother Josie at a dance in 1970. He had just been diagnosed with a learning disability. His sister remembers well the opinions of doctors back then.
He would never be any different from what he was at that moment in time, and that she would be far better just to put him into an institution and forget about him. And for any mother, that's something devastating that nobody should ever have to be told.
Despite his family's best efforts to care for Bryan at home, he was detained under the Mental Health Act and taken into Muckamore Abbey Hospital at the age of 21. He is now 56 and remains there, locked away.
The day that he went to Muckamore, I'll never forget it. It was the most traumatic day of my life. They started to take him into the ward and we went to go in after him, and the door was closed in our face. We were told we weren't allowed in. That's my brother's entire adult life. He has spent behind walls under lock and key as if he was some sort of a prisoner.
The trauma has been compounded for Bryan and his family. Behind the locked doors of Muckamore, there are allegations he has been physically abused, along with several other patients here.
It was actually a member of staff who pulled Bryan's trousers and pants down in a common area where there were other people around. We have been informed of approximately, probably in the region of 30 to 40 incidents. My mother died in 2015, and our only consolation is that she never heard or never knew anything about the abuse that has happened on Muckamore.
None of the staff have ever been charged in relation to Bryan's abuse allegations, but Muckamore is now the focus for one of the largest investigations into adult safeguarding failures in the history of the NHS.
Our clients have been informed by police about allegations of assaults, of alleged kicks, punches, being thrown to the ground. We have had a number of alleged sexual assaults.
Given all we know about the allegations of abuse, why are there so many people still languishing in Muckamore Abbey?
One of the things that we hear repeatedly is that my son or my daughter was admitted to Muckamore so that he or she could be assessed and we could have a treatment plan and move forward. And 10 years later, no one's heard the outcome of this assessment, and suddenly this individual becomes locked in a system of institutionalisation and being trapped in a manner that they are unable to get back into society. Those people have less rights than those in jail.
Bryan's case goes back 35 years, and yet so little has changed. Today, across the UK, we're still seeing people with learning disabilities and autism being locked away for decades in inappropriate institutions. Bryan and dozens of others remain locked up in this hospital, despite it being at the heart of a public inquiry facing multiple allegations of abuse, because somehow this place is still deemed to be better than the few alternatives.
ITV News has seen evidence that Bryan was cleared to return to society 25 years ago, yet he is still there, sometimes sedated.
He's not getting any active treatment, and the only reason that he's still there is because there's no facility for him to go to in the community.
So he stays there, languishing?
So he stays there, languishing, yes, languishing. And all these incidents and abuse happening to him, and nobody seems to care.
The future of Muckamore is under review. Families and even some of the staff we've spoken to want to see it shut down. But they also know closing the building will not fix the system that continues to fail the most vulnerable people in our society.
Oh, Peter, what an upsetting case. I mean, horrific, isn't it? What has the hospital said in response?
Well, in Northern Ireland, it's the hospital trusts that are taking care. The Northern trusts say that because there's this ongoing public inquiry, it would not be appropriate to comment. The Belfast Trust gave us some more information, saying that they have previously and continue to apologise to Bryan and his family and to all those who received substandard care at the Muckamore Abbey Hospital. They say that the situation there remains difficult because of shortages in suitable staff, but they have identified, they say, a purpose-built future home for Bryan to go to. So a glimmer of hope there. But the problem is that the family are telling me that there are still great concerns that they have about the appropriateness of what's being offered. And this comes down to the very, very root of this problem. In all of our investigations, the lack of investment for decades to provide appropriate care for people like Bryan with autism and learning disabilities. The political choice has been to spend millions of pounds a year to have them locked up in institutions out of mind, out of sight, rather than pay for the right care for them to live a full and free life. What struck me was that when Bryan was a baby in the 1960s in Northern Ireland, his mother was told, put him in an institution, forget about him. That attitude seems shocking to us today, but when you see the investigations that we've done into this, you ask yourself how much has really changed in the system that is meant to care for these people, because there are more than 2,000 people still to this day locked up in these institutions with no way out.
Desperate. Peter, thank you.